All the elected officials, if you please rise to be recognized. And once again, we'd like to recognize our sponsors, including those who couldn't have a representative here today, including the News Herald. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to speak. Jeff Rankin here will keep the time. We will begin with Jeff Gorman, District 13. Jeff.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Gorman. I'd like to thank you for inviting me here and thank the sponsors as well as the Chamber. And for the high school kids back there, please pay attention. You guys got more trips around the sun left than we do, and it's very important. It's your future that's at stake. Our government has no power except that granted it by the people. It's time to check and reverse the growth of government, which shows signs of having grown beyond the consent of the governed. It is my intention to curb the size and influence of the federal establishment and to demand recognition of the distinction between the powers granted to the federal government and those reserved to the states or to the people. All of us need to be reminded that the federal government did not create the states created the federal government. That's from Ronald Reagan's inaugural address in January 20th, 1981. My, how things have changed, or maybe not, and gotten for the worse. My name is Jeff Gorman. I'm a resident of Garden City, a graduate of the Garden City East High School, the U.S. Naval Academy, and the University of Cincinnati. I'm a retired naval officer and naval aviator with 24 years of service to our country, and a retired commercial airline pilot who served the last 2 years of his 20-year career as an armed pilot to personally protect my passengers and my crew. I've been talking to the citizens of the district, going door to door. In fact, I started out with 10,000 business cards, and I'm down to 2,000. Now, I haven't talked to everybody that I've given a card, but I've talked to a lot of people, and I've heard to their disgust and frustration with politicians, government at all levels, and almost everything political. They're tired of the taxes they pay, the disservice they get from government, and the intrusion of government rules and regulations in almost every facet of their life. They're concerned about the lack of national security, financial stability, and civil tranquility. It sounds like they've reached the point where they are ready to take back control of the government and, by stopping its overreach, their lives. Sounds like President Reagan's words probably strike a familiar chord. What do we need to do in D.C.? Well, here's a statement of the root of the problem and then some solutions. It's a constitutional problem. Knowing that a large, disconnected national government was the main cause of the colony's ills, the Founding Fathers constructed a constitution that limited federal authority. They knew that handling issues at the lowest levels always worked the best. And we've lost sight of that, sometimes by design and sometimes by desperation. In that regard, we need to recommit to this document in the following areas. Security. Internationally, the primary purpose of the federal government is to protect the common interests of the states. Foremost is a protection of our unalienable rights as well as us. We've weakened our military to the point that it's inadequate. Proper and smart funding is needed to properly man, equip, and train our armed forces. We need to eliminate fraud and waste while returning to the strength needed to defend our interests when called upon. I attended the commissioning of the USS Detroit on Saturday, and that's a step in the right direction, and we need to keep doing things like that. We also need to examine when the military is used and properly. And finally, we need to take care of those who did serve, and as they say, some gave all and all gave some. Domestically, we need to protect our citizens as well. Again, handling issues at the lowest level is the best way. We must support our local law enforcement. That support must include sufficient backup with our federal law enforcement agencies to provide them with the intelligence they need to do their job. The federal agencies must also be ready to provide enforcement for attacks being perpetrated on a national level, including foreign influence terrorist attacks here in our own country. Economically, again, the problem is not following the Constitution. The federal government has its tentacles in so many things, we need to get them out of it, because a lot of the things that it does are not granted to it by the Constitution, and it affects our lives without the input from your federal, your elected officials, and that's totally wrong. So we need to do things like fix the tax code and get us back in shape. In fact, we need to go to either a flat or a fair tax. Finally, the general conduct of the government in national matters not involving security, we got to make it a special thing to be a friend of the United States. We want to treat everybody equally, but we want to make sure that the advantages that we give to another country, whether it's trade or that, only goes to the ones that share our same ideals. It's past time to get our roots together, go back to our roots. I just want to say God bless you all, and God bless the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Gorman. Now we have Tom Bagwell, candidate for District 12.
They tell us to pick a side, to check a box, to fall in line. They tell us that we only have two choices. They tell us to pick the lesser of two evils. But that's not what I believe. I don't fall into a red or a blue box. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Tom Bagwell. I live right down the road here in Wyandotte with my wife Sarah and our three beautiful children. I've been a lifelong resident of Southeast Michigan, and I'm concerned about the future of our community and our nation. So I've told you what I don't believe, that I don't believe in the lesser of two evils, that I don't believe Republican, Democrat, red or blue. So you might ask, what's this libertarian believe in? Well, I believe in peace. That means having a humble foreign policy with no nation building, a smaller, more agile military that will respond effectively for national defense. We can indeed cut our military and have adequate defense. We can stop the terrorist threat by creating peaceful relationships around the world. That is peace and cooperation with all nations and entangling alliances with none. We should withdraw from all theaters that is humanly possible around the world, and we should take care of those that served when they come home. Taking care of them means providing adequate health care and benefits to those who did serve and honoring those contract obligations. I believe that a small community is more powerful than the largest bureaucracy, and that small communities, entrepreneurs, and small business owners are more valuable to our nation than the largest government bureaucratic agency. You should have the right to conduct your business, serve your customers, your stakeholders, and your employees and community in the way that you see fit without excess taxation and regulation. It should be easy to seek the American dream and be financially free. We should have economic freedom zones in depressed areas to help place a moratorium on federal regulations and provide help to communities that need help. Corporate taxes should be significantly slashed so you can create jobs and provide value to the community and those that serve us. I believe in collaboration and innovation, that groups of people should be allowed to come together voluntarily without force, without harsh regulation or subsidy to work together towards common goals, purposes, and to create new technologies and solve problems like climate change. Education should be localized and individualized on a free market basis so that children, parents, and teachers can collaborate, innovate, and individualize the education of our youth, which is so important. I believe in tolerance and respect, and that cooperation is far superior to compulsion. That is, that the ideal society is one in which all humans own themselves and exercise sole dominion over their own lives, where all relationships are voluntary and free of force, fraud, and coercion. And that includes your relationship with government. I believe in the non-aggression principle, which is in basic terms what we learned in kindergarten. Don't hit people and don't take their stuff. And that should apply to our government as well. Not taking their stuff means we should repeal the 16th Amendment and put an end to the personal income tax in a reasonable amount of time while cutting the federal budget. Does that mean cutting all government? Absolutely not. But it means having a smaller, more efficient government that treats people as family rather than livestock, that actually serves the needs of our communities and our neighbors. I believe that governments where they should exist should serve the people, and not the other way around, and this includes law enforcement and our courts. We need criminal justice reform in this country, and we need national standards for police training and use of force. Our police departments should not look like invading armies. They should look like people ready to serve and help our community. We also need to end the war on drugs, legalize marijuana, and return our drug problem and treat it as the health problem that it is. Locking up nonviolent offenders for drugs only contributes to the ills of drug abuse, doesn't solve it. Finally, I believe that people are basically good, that they seek to live their own lives in peace and harmony, and that every person inherent in their nature, especially teenagers wanting to leave their mom and dad's house, they want freedom. I want a government that's out of your pocketbook and out of your bedroom, but provides the basic services that you and I want and desire. Thomas Jefferson said, that government which governs best governs least, because its people are disciplined. If you believe like Jefferson and I, then please give me your vote on November 8th. Let's work together to return to a small, efficient government that treats the American people like family, and let's light the fires of liberty in America once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagwell. Now Jeff Jones, also candidate in District 12.
Hello, my name's Jeff Jones, candidate for the 12th District, and I grew up here. I live here. I have 11 children, 10 grandkids, so the decisions that I make will not just affect today, but tomorrow as well. I happen to believe that party politics is the most destructive force in America today, and I believe that we have been divided purposely so that we do not recognize the fact that there's millions of us and only 600 of them in Washington. And so if we can get together and collaborate together, then we can make the changes that are absolutely necessary in community. And it's community that this role plays. First of all, I take an oath to Congress if I get elected, and that is to uphold the Constitution of the United States against foreign and domestic enemies, and I do so without mental reserve. That means I cannot pick and choose the constitutional issues that I choose to support and the constitutional issues I choose to neglect. And so with that, it's a full effort. The Constitution is a beautiful thing that unites us all. It's why people from all over the world come to America. We do not have an immigration problem. What we have is an illegal immigration problem, and that's a whole other story. So, but they come from around the world. I understand it because it's opportunity that they're looking for. And so in that, they come here to America for the purpose of growing a dream and having a vision. That's why my number one platform issue is educational renaissance. And it is a terminology that we've worked on long because it needs a new light brought to the subject. For those that are here, we all recall our school days, but for 100 years we've been teaching the exact same way. You can only retain 10% of what you read, 20% of what you hear, and 30% of what you see. So the three main medias that we use for education has a 70% failure ratio. So is it any wonder that we have some weaknesses and flaws, or maybe another purpose in mind? But everyone here, no matter what age you are, and I've talked to a diversity of people. I was just talking to a 75-year-old gentleman the other day down in Gibraltar, and I asked him what was his favorite field trip. And he went into great details at 75, telling me how he had a train ride from Lincoln Park to the city of Detroit back in his day, and he recalls the weather, the person that sat next to him on the train ride, and even what he had in his brown bag lunch, if you remember those things. And so what happens is we retain 85% of what we experience. If we teach what we experience, we retain 95% of that information. So if we could take the coming generations and give them the opportunity to experience education, I believe that we would expand great minds, great dreams, and great opportunities through that, and give them the ability to mentor their other students below them. Now, we took this idea to a project in Osborne High School in Detroit on a voluntary basis, and we gave them 47 minutes a week, what we call character identity training. And all we did was we pulled out the 4 greatest attributes that dwell inside of them as human beings. And they were all different. Even though there were similar passions and similar dreams, there were different things that came out, that they found out that they had a tenacity inside of them that had become buried. And we allowed them to experience it, understand it, and taught them how to address it on a daily basis in all their relationships, their schooling, and so forth. We took 38 of those struggling students at Osborne High School, put them through that program, and in 2 semesters, they improved their grades 35 to 85%. We never taught them about reading, writing, or arithmetic. Because we gave them a dream. We gave them a vision of what they could be and what they could have, and we allowed the teachers to engage them and experience them and what they can do. So through all that, we had an amazing test results to compare and take us to it on a national level. And if we could take the next generation, give them the vision to dream, give them the vision to express themselves in such a way, we can change all the things, all this. If you want to know who I am and what I believe, go to my website, jeffjonesforcongress.com, and it's the top 12 for the 12. And I'm just going to leave with these last 4 questions. I ask you this, and then you decide how to do these. But if you take the last 50 years of the 12th Congressional District, would you say that jobs and opportunities are greater than they've ever been, or not? Would you say that education is more powerful than it's ever been, producing more productive students than ever, or not? Do you believe that teachers have all the tools that they need to educate your students, or not? Do you believe that your unions are stronger than they've ever been, or not? Do you believe that your community is thriving or struggling? And do you believe your municipalities have all the tools they need to create a safe environment in your community, or not? If you answer those 4 questions the way everybody else does in the 12th district, I think we need to take a look at how we vote. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Now, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, also 12th District.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon. Quite proud. I want to thank Sandy and the Chamber for sponsoring this. I think it's really important that you have a chance to hear from all of us. I want to thank Jeff and Tom, who I've gotten to know through candidate debates, for running and for allowing us to have an opportunity to talk about the issue. Jeff, I've never met you before, but nice to meet you today. I want to tell you how glad I am to be here and why I am running for re-election. I think that this is one of the most important for the young people here, and it's great to see so many young people. You know, as you start to, how many of you could vote this year? So some of you, but okay, I know you guys can vote. But many of us have heard that this is the most important election of our lifetime. I do believe that this is the most important election of our lifetime. I'm really disturbed by what we are seeing and witnessing in this country, and the fact that we are allowing ourselves to be divided. I think we need to do a lot more focusing on what unites us than what divides us. I think we are lucky to live in the United States of America. I still think this is the greatest country in the world. We've got to make sure that we fight for our national security every single day, and we've got issues that we have to address. But I'm very committed to working with everybody and across the aisle on issues that do need to be addressed, but I think we're forgetting what a great country we live in too much of the time. For the Downrivers, it's great to be with you. The Downrivers have, Southeast Michigan's been my home forever, but Downrivers have been, John's been my home for decades. It's where John had his kids. It's where my grandchildren have been born and raised, and I'm really proud to come from here. The issues that you and I care about, we care about manufacturing. I'm a car girl, born and bred, you know it. I worked for the auto industry for 3 decades, and I think it's very important that we continue to make sure that the auto industry stays strong in this state while we diversify the economy. One of the important projects that we are working on right now is at Willow Run, converting the old Willow Run plant and making that the test center and R&D center in this country for automotive, I'm getting connected and driverless autonomous vehicles. We're not going to let that go to Silicon Valley. We're going to keep that right here and keep Michigan at the forefront of innovation and technology. We need to work to protect the Great Lakes. I'm proud of what I've done in continuing that fight. You know, it was interesting when you look at clips from the 60s, the DCC, which is a wonderful group, thank you, Jim Perry. But some of the mayors, when they first talked about cleaning up the water, were afraid it was going to cost too much money when the clean water bill first went through. Now we're proud to see the Great Lakes clean. We're 20% of the fresh water in the world, and we have a moral responsibility to protect those Great Lakes. We have to make sure that we're not letting invasive species, et cetera, get into them. I'm very proud of the fact that I do work across the aisle. So Candace Miller and I woke up one morning. I woke up before she did at 6 a.m. I grew up in St. Clair as a child. And I saw that there was a company that was going to take a 91-year-old pipeline and start looking at putting oil again, going through it again potentially. I emailed Candace, said, "You worried?" She said, "Yes. Shall we do something?" Before our staffs or anybody woke up, we had done a letter that we sent to the Secretary of State to reopen a rulemaking because nobody had known that that pipeline was going to potentially be used. We got the rulemaking reopened. Within 2 weeks, the company that was looking at using that pipeline said, "We're not going to use it." Without drama, without the fight for sound bites, we effectively kept a pipeline from going under the St. Clair River and threatening all of the Great Lakes and threatening the downrivers. I'm proud of other things that I'm fighting very hard. We've all got to worry about fair trade deals. I wasn't even in the Congress before I got asked about whether I was going to support President Obama. I don't agree with Donald Trump on much, but I do agree that we've got to make sure that we are fighting unfair trade deals. That I was one of the leaders and have been one of the leaders, and I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that the United States Congress does not approve TPP, which will hurt American workers. And not only is the UAW opposed to it, but so is Ford and Chrysler, and GM still trying to figure out well, GM's opposed, but they're afraid to say it publicly. But we need to be fighting these trade deals that hurt us. We need to have voices in Congress that are going to fight for currency manipulation. There are a ton of other things we need. We've still got a broken infrastructure. I think we need to be creative and look at starting something called a National Infrastructure Bank. My time is almost up. This is what I'm going to say to you. I think that we got to work with everybody. I think the American people are tired of the partisan bickering. They want to see us work together to address this nation's problems. And I'm committed, if you all re-elect me, that I will work as I always have with everybody in this community to listen and address the problems we have and to focus on all that is good. Thank you very much.
Some brief announcements before we have an opportunity to ask some questions of our candidates. The Live at 5 will take place tomorrow, October 25th, 5 to 7 p.m. at Champion Sports Grill. That's casual networking. The Evening Spark Cigar Networking Group will take place on November 1st. That's from 5:30 to 7:30. The Morning Spark will take place Friday, November 4th. It's going to be hosted by the Henry Ford Village in Dearborn. That's 7:50 a.m. to 9 a.m. The next ABO will be hosted by Ray Hunter in Southgate on Thursday, November 17th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Many exhibitor tables are available for members. The next legislative forum, which would be entitled Impact of Elections Outcomes on Business, will take place Monday, November 14th here at the Crystal Gardens. It'll feature Speaker Richard Studley, President and CEO of Michigan Chamber of Commerce. Take place at 11 a.m. Again, for sponsorships, please call Mary Jarose. The 49th Annual Salute to Government Officials that the Chamber sponsors will take place Thursday, December 1st from 5:30 to 8 p.m. It'll be at the Brownstown Event Center. The refreshments and raffle includes the famous Sleigh of Cheer. Please call the Chamber for sponsorship opportunities. The Conscious Company Workshop with Nathan Havey will take place Wednesday, December 14th from 8 to 10. And you're asked to save the date. The next Business to Business Expo and Conference will take place Friday, January 27th. It'll be here at the Crystal Gardens Banquet Center. The Conference and Expo will take place from 8 to 3. There's a black tie from 6 to 9. The afterglow to follow. And just confirmed, the breakfast speaker will feature the president of Shinola, Jacques Gryn. And the Chamber Reflections of Italy trip is scheduled for October 4th through 13th, 2017. And you're asked to call the Chamber for details on that event. And you can get all these details by calling the Chamber or visiting our website. It has all the information that you need. Just want to mention that we had other candidates who confirmed to be here today, but must have had a conflict preventing them from being here. Those include Tiffany Hayden and John Conyers, which would have been the 13th Congressional District. Our first question, we'll take it in the order in which our candidates spoke. Do you think there should be a 28th Amendment? If so, what issue should it address? Mr. Gorman?
Spent many years in the theater, so I know with my own voice I could hit the back of that room without any problem, but I'll go ahead and use the mic. 28th Amendment, there was a book written about the Liberty Amendments. I don't know if anybody read that one. Term limits is one, and a balanced budget. That's probably two amendments, but term limits, this is public service. It's not a career. We go to George Washington, who was a believer in Cincinnatus. The idea, you served the public, then you went back to what you were doing. Term limits would be one thing that's, that I would support, as well as a balanced budget amendment. Whether that's the 28th or the 28th and 29th, I'm not sure.
But I'll just walk the microphone down to the candidates, be a little easier.
Well, I have three ideas, kind of to echo what Jeff said. Yes, term limits are important. Like you said, it is public service. We should be there long enough to get things done, to learn the ropes, to get things done for you folks. But we should not be there so long that we're sitting there with outdated ideas, not actively engaged anymore. So I think term limits need to be there, but let's have a reasonable time to actually be in office and get things done for the people. Like I said in my 5 minutes there, I'd like to repeal the 16th Amendment, get rid of the income tax. So an amendment I would propose would be just like the alcohol prohibition, repealing the 16th Amendment. And also, to echo what Jeff said again, I think a balanced budget is important. Congress can't balance the budget on its own. We should have the Constitution there to support balancing the budget.
And I also am in agreement about term limits. I happen to believe that although 2 years is not enough to accomplish what needs to be done in Congress, if you understand the role, you get elected and you start working on your next campaign. So I think that we need to extend the role of Congress so that they can get things done. I do believe that two or three terms would be more than adequate in that process, and maybe a 6-year term would be reasonable. And then same as well with Senate then. So if we limit those terms, that would mean that someone has the opportunity to serve 36 years if they want to in 3 terms, which I think is long enough to make the impact and decisions that are necessary without building a machine of lobbyists and connections that have really corrupted America in the process, that we've lost our voice in community and lobbyists speak louder, and I think that would help control some of that.
Thank you. I guess I would have to, I wasn't going to say this, but I will say I don't agree with them on term limits. I think we have term limits every 2 years. People need to vote. That one of the problems, if you talk to the Chamber, the business organizations are concerned about what's happening in state legislatures on term limits, and that lobbyists are the ones that are driving the decisions. This isn't I would support the Equal Rights Amendment. Been fighting for that for a long time. I think that finally women should have all of the same protections that men do, and I think that women should be paid equal pay for equal work.
We always like to entertain questions from our students, and now would be a good time to announce what schools are present today. And as I call out your school's name, if you'd please stand and be recognized. And also, as a reminder that you have an opportunity to have your photo taken with our candidates after today's program. We have Riverview High School, sponsored by Caesar Capital Management. Gabriel Richard High School, sponsored by Semca. Southgate Ashers, sponsored by DTE. Carlson High School, sponsored by Fay Bird. Melvindale High School, sponsored by Baker College. Lutheran High School, Westland, sponsored by Reverend Dr. Richard Zeile. Truman High School, sponsored by Councilman Alex Garza. And River Rouge High School, sponsored by the Southern Wayne County Regional Chamber of Commerce. And our first question, again, from one of the students, it has been proposed that college tuition be free. This student is actually all for this, but they do ask, how will you pay for it? We'll start with Congressman Bailey.
Well, there is a proposal right now that would make two-year, it's not been voted on, but it would make, we don't use the word junior college anymore, but the two-year colleges affordable or free for young people, and I have plans to support it. We need to pay for it through a variety of ways that do not add to the budget. I, by the way, do believe that we need to balance the budget, but when you do sequestration or just cut straight across the board, you see penalties that are paid to national security and other things, which is why I'm not someone that believes in putting caps or cutting straight across the board, but we do need to reduce spending. But I do think we've got a real problem in this country, education, and I think that if you are a young person in this country, equal opportunity means being able to afford an education, and we need to ensure that you have an equal education from the time that you're born. 0 to 5 is one of the most important times of your development through higher ed. If you want to go to college, we should also understand the importance of skilled trades and other jobs like that too. They're equally important. Thank you.
Thank you. There's certainly a serious problem. The inflationary rate in education is 7%. That means every 10 years the cost of education is going to double. So if it's $60,000 a year to go to Michigan State right now, it's going to be $120,000 in 10 years. Just inflation works like it does. It has a set of rules that it follows, and if that inflationary rate does not change, this is what's coming. So on that note, I'm not sure who, anybody here in business would give a note for $100,000 to a 17 or 18-year-old for an education that they can't guarantee that there's even a job opportunity when they get out. I have a daughter-in-law that went to East Carolina University, a 4-year degree in biotech, came back to Michigan, and was offered a job for $9.25 an hour moving lab rats from one room to another. But her loan debt is $1,008 a month. There's just no way that you can do that and expect any changes. So we have to take a look at why that's done. And the bank, Wells Fargo, issued a lot of those loans because they got backed by